Okay, in this lesson, we're going to have a quick little look at these two very interesting geographic features, sandbars and lagoons. Now, first thing you have to bear in mind is we're dealing with the same sorts of processes that we have seen in the spit, which you will have just looked at. So the process of longshore drift is very important in understanding the formation of these features, as is the process of waves carrying sediment up onto the coast through the process of a swash, which is the forward movement of the wave, and with material then getting deposited in the shape of a beach, because sandbars and tombolas are effectively just beaches, just in the same way that a spit is a beach. They're just beaches that are shaped in interesting and different ways. So let's have a little look at each of these features through some photographs and understand what they are. So in this first photo, this is a sandbar, and it's created a lagoon. Okay, now on this side we have the lagoon. What we have to imagine is we have a piece of the Scottish coast, and this is a headland here, and it's bending round, and we have a little bay. So here's the other side of the bay. This is another headland, but the beach has grown across the bay, and we can see the sea, and I know that's the sea because I can see the waves washing up against the beach on this side. But on the other side, I can't see any waves because actually we're inside a bay that's now been cut off by this beach. Now, during the high tide, the sea will pour over and fill the bay again. Okay, so this will become an entire bay. But during a low tide, it's possible to walk across this bay because there's now a sandbar. Now, in this example, we have another sandbar. Very different this time because it's growing all of the way along the coast. The old coastline we can see in the background. There it is. Here we can see that clearly an area is developed for boating and leisure pursuits, and people have built their homes in this area. And here we have a lagoon. So a lagoon is a sheltered area that's cut off from the sea. So here we have the seaside with the main beach and the waves. You can see the waves crashing against the beach. There's actually a small little entry point for boats to get in and out. But this whole feature here is a long sandbar growing along the coast, and it's got a forest now established on it. Let's look at a third example of a sandbar. This is a little bit different, sometimes known as an offshore bar. It's also a beach growing along the coast because of longshore drift, but we can actually see here's a small lagoon, and here we have another beach that's now sheltered. Now, during high tide, we won't see this bar. Sometimes these sandbars are quite far out at sea, and during a low tide, we can see them. We can actually wade out to them, but during a high tide, they tend to be covered up and they're not visible. Okay, so that's sandbars and lagoons. The other feature is a tombola. Now, it's a fascinating feature because it's an island, like this is an actual island, but it gets joined by a beach that's grown out to it. And during a low tide, you could actually walk out and climb onto this island. During a high tide, you need a boat because the sea would be higher and it would cover this beach. And it's very similar to the process of a spit. You've got to imagine the spit growing out, but instead of getting cut off by the current of a river or growing to the other side of the bay, it just meets an island, or in this case, this might have been an old sea stack, and connects to it. Okay, they often places that lighthouses have been built, and during low tides you can actually walk out to them. If we just have a quick little look at the process in diagram form. Here is the sandbar and lagoon, and we can see longshore drift, the zigzagging of sediment along the coast, and then it comes to the bay, which we can see here, and it just grows across the bay, but this time there's no river washing away the spit as it would be if there had been a river, and therefore it grows across the other side of the bay to meet the other headland, which is over here. And that means that the old bay is now blocked. Now, sometimes it can be permanently blocked by the bar, or sometimes it's only blocked during a low tide. If we continued along the coast, and let's say there was move to our second diagram, there was a sudden change in direction, headland and bay situation, but our beach keeps growing. This time, though, instead of it meeting the other side of the bay or forming a spit, it's joined an island. And that's often cut off from the mainland during high tides, but you can walk out to them during low tides, as I showed you in the picture. Final part of the task that I'd like to do is I'd like to highlight the key points in your written answer to these two features, which I've got here and I've done for you. So what are the key things I'd need you to highlight? Well, a sandbar forms when a beach keeps, and this is key, growing along the coast. So you want to use your highlighter pen up there to highlight that. Even when the coastline has changed, you want to highlight this bit, the direction. It will continue to grow right across the bay because longshore drift deposits material. That's what you're going to need to hide. This just going to change that. This will eventually create an area of trapped seawater known as a lagoon, if you want to type that. Over time, the lagoon may dry up. A famous example can be seen on the Dorset coast called Chesil Beach. Now, that's actually where during World War II, the British forces and the American forces practiced the D-Day landings. They did it on Chesil Beach to see prior to actually doing the Normandy landings. That's just a little bit of fact for you. Right, our second feature, the tombola. So a tombola, let's highlight that, is where, once again, longshore drift pushes a beach out to sea when the coast, let's highlight this, changes direction. If it meets an island, let's highlight that. The island is now joined to the mainland. Let's put that by the beach. During a low tide, you can walk out to it. But during a high tide, it is an island. Let's highlight that. A famous example can be seen on the Dorset coast called the Isle of Portland. That concludes our final two features in our landscapes. You're now ready to move on to how we use those landscapes, how human beings use those landscapes in a variety of different ways.